realized I understand fully today how like a professional like Kyle Larson is able just to have a momentary lapse and hit some barrels or whatever. Because it's like I realize, bro. Sometimes you just be at the job and you're good at your job, but sometimes shit happen you just be trash for about 5 minutes. Because like today when I got back, I was trying to back a trailer in, and man, I couldn't do it if I had three steering wheels. That's ridiculous. And it's like any day of the week, I could navigate an ocean liner through a china shop and during tea time and not spill a drop. But today, if I was in a 40-acre field with two red freshly painted barns, I'd have come out looking like Ronald McDonald. Man, that's ridiculous.
Oh
So
man.
anyway, yeah, it was rough, and I was like, "This is how this happens."
Now you know.
What?
I'm saying now you know what that's like.
Yeah,
The
I do.
barrels.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I was carrying on your thing. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I didn't. I didn't. Yeah, I didn't. I didn't hit nothing for legal purposes and otherwise. So,
Just in case anyone's listening, I'm sure your employer's listening to this.
well, no, I do have a coworker that's like been texting me a lot about NASCAR, and like I kind of want to plug the pod, but I'm also just like, I don't think he would get down with what we're talking about. Because yesterday
It's
he
the
was
real
like,
me.
yeah, man. Well, no, because yesterday he was like, "Who are you rooting for?" And I had to choose my words very carefully. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm going for all the Hendrick drivers." And I was like, "Yeah, I definitely can't put you on there, man." So,
Yeah, nah, brother. All right.
yes.
I'm good to go whenever y'all are.
So I one takeaway from the episode with Braden. I'm a precisional instrument of speed and aromatics. That's not me. That's the great Mater, the tow truck from Cars.
We don't need to go
I
down this
watched
road.
I watched Cars yesterday, y'all, and Carl had a really great point. He wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong at all. It was there was some racism in the pit road scene and everything. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of wild.
I straight up this week in my mind was just thinking about where he was like, Lightning was like, "Oh, we're off on anybody to change my tires and fill me up with gas." And you're like, "We quit Mr. One Man Show," and he was like, "Whatever, Chuck." He's like, "My name's not Chuck. Whatever." I was crying laughing at that, and I couldn't explain to nobody why it was so funny. So,
Oh man. But anyway, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Victory Lane Vibes. We are your hostesses with the mostesses. I'm Jared. We got Art. We got Carl. Bonte's here. Got a full staff tonight to talk about the shenanigans, including the Aaron's 499 that's no longer at Talladega. It's at Daytona.
Oh man.
But as always, we kick it off with a new segment. We got spilled milk.
What? Spilled milk? All over the floor.
Yeah, so I guess first of all, apologies that you're listening to me and not the wonderfully charismatic and effervescent Carl.
Goodness
How
gracious.
Don't say that. Don't call him that. He doesn't know what those words mean.
Goodness gracious.
All right, you got
however,
one more time. Let's go. Keep it going.
but I guess my biggest thing, or sort of I won't cramp Carl's style by calling it spilled milk, but certainly an axe to grind. And that is this week, Speed Weeks was the racing equivalent of a wet fart. Oh my god. I I was particularly after the Xfinity race last night as of the time of recording. I was texting a very good friend of mine. They're, super into NASCAR. And, and I told them, and it certainly rings true, it baffles me that IMSA, which, is effectively a NASCAR property, can put on a fabulous show for 24 bloody hours. Yet you cannot get one series for 3.5 there or thereabouts to put on something that is vaguely decent at Daytona. The truck race, absolute nonsense. ARCA, garbage. The conclusion of Cup was just about one of the worst things I have seen in a very long time, and we will get to that later.
Mhm.
And Xfinity was a wreck fest. It also capped off by absolute nightmare officiating. It it just boggles the mind that this is where we are at with NASCAR in the year 2024. And certainly, if any of you remember, I was feeling particularly hopeful after the clash, and I guess that is shame on me for even daring think that for more than about the 30 seconds that it took to form that thought. But it almost beggars belief that this week was so bad. Also, the duels were wreckfest. It's like half the field got junked in both. I'm like, you're talking about fields that aren't even full size. You all really mean to tell me you can't keep it together for a partial race distance with a half field? I just do not understand it. It's just like I said, it beggars belief. And then kind of the other piece of this also is NASCAR and NASCAR fans have real little brother syndrome when it comes to themselves in relation to other series. Around the time that this episode goes out, we will be in the thick of Formula One preseason testing. I do not want to hear a goddamn thing from any of you. Because I can see it now. Oh, well, Cup cars will put on a better show at Bahrain. No, they won't. You all can't keep it together at Daytona. It's like, what makes you think that on a, FIA grade 1 circuit that you all at this point would be able to do better? You know, and I understand the frustrations with the fact that the Formula 1 field can be a little bit lopsided, but just the perpetual talking of NASCAR fans anytime that this is in relation to any other series, and then we get this stinker. Like, get out of here, honestly. Just piss off. But I guess with that off my chest, if anybody else wants to piggyback before we move forward.
No, I think we'll all probably have a similar statement when we talk about the cup race as a whole, because otherwise, I mean, we could spend 45 minutes just on that. Um, yeah, I will say this though. I I don't like. I fully understand like the comparison argument between like NASCAR putting on a better show than Formula One, but Formula One being like a more global statured sport and having a bigger following in X, Y, and Z. What I never will understand is like people see like F1 at any circuit that F1 goes to, and like you said, they automatically assume that if the Cup Series went there, it'd be more entertaining, and it's just like we don't even really know what they'll do on a street circuit yet. Like the two can exist in their own worlds. You don't need one to like compete directly with the other because it's not comparable whatsoever. And it's so annoying that NASCAR fans get so pissy about it. And it's just like because it's just almost to the point of toxicity now when both like seasons are going on at some point in time. So yeah, I do. I will agree with you on that because it's really annoying. And like all year this year, we're gonna hear like, well, we only have like two lead changes a race, so the same guy wins all the time, and it's just the same tired arguments. But it's also like, look who won yesterday, as far as guys that win all the time. Anyway, but yeah, we can move on from that before I get too deep off into it too.
Oh, don't worry. I'm going to give you plenty of chances to get too deep off into it. Um, but we'll just start with qualifying. Let's just start slow. Um, the Toyotas had nothing to show, nothing there. I lost my bet with Braden saying that old Jimmy Jams was going to go P1 because the Toyotas didn't like that. 20th, 22nd, 28th, 30th, 45th. They weren't there to be seen, but apparently the front row check cleared. Not only did Michael McDowell get P2 alongside Joey Logano, who qualified for the pole for the 500 yesterday. It was also mentioned that they took SHR's spot as a tier one Ford program. Oof.
I mean, I can, yeah, I'll queue up on that. You know, man, I don't feel negative. I don't feel negatively about it. I don't feel sorry about it. You know, I don't. People were, you know, kind of like commentating, like, you know, on the downward spiral of SHR, or there was speculation led by one spotter that's on another podcast who loves to lead speculation on things. So we don't actually know if that means that another team is out of the fold or whatever. We have no idea what Ford's capabilities are, right? But I'll say this: I gave McDowell, well, I give him a B when we did the report cards, Art, because you were really pissed off about it.
I think you were. I don't
I
remember
gave
if
him
it
a
was a
B
B.
because I gave Busher an A. Yeah, I gave Busher an A.
Yeah.
I gave McDowell a B, and I generally, I do not, I have no roses for this man whatsoever. But you know, I've been watching old NASCAR this week, or listening to rather. You know, I remember like there was a period of time where that team was showing up in any old car they could buy to the tracks in 2006, '07. I mean, they were doing whatever it took to get to the racetrack, and they didn't have a lot. And so, in this day and age of, you know, this the NASCAR is almost equivalent to like the show Suits. It's like all power brokering deals and stuff like that. You know, just like, you know, we saw BJ McLeod selling his charter, and that was huge news. And Justin Marks throwing money around, you know, Legacy 20, what all this kind of stuff. In a day and age where like the only way you build an organization is just by spending money, to see see a team naturally stick it out and grow organically to this point, to me, is a win for the entirety of the sport. So I take that news greatly. I am not thrilled for what it means about the chance of McDowell winning a couple races a year, but I am happy for Front Row Motorsports as a whole and Bob Jenkins that they got to this point. And that's, you know, all I got to say about that. So yeah, the Jimmy Johnson situation shouldn't have been that dramatic to begin with. So you know.
Yeah, I'll just tag on there. You know, you look at McDowell. He wins the Daytona 500, comes back 2 years later, gets in the playoffs. There aren't that many drivers you can say that have been in the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years. So he's definitely earned his spot, you know, and he's elevated that team to a higher level. And if Ford feels that they're the best fit going forward, I mean, that would make a lot of sense to me. There isn't a ton of competition out there. And I do kind of like, to Carl's point, that an organization that isn't a 4 team powerhouse can now have that top tier level backing from a manufacturer. I think it just kind of harkens back to those days where there was a bit more diversity in terms of the teams, in terms of the sizes and the resources available, but they could still run and be competitive. That isn't to say that Front Row is, you know, a mom and pop shop necessarily, but if you look at it compared to a Hendrix, a JGR, like they're definitely smaller in scale. So for them to get that and then to be paid off for it with the Front Row performance out of Michael, I mean, that's really as much as you could ask for. I don't think you can expect a guy to come in and run well in the Daytona 500 just because it's such a lottery. But for things that can be within your control to get on the front row of qualifying, that's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think certainly like, you know, a lot of folks, you know, certainly for a while, neither FRM nor McDowell I have, you know, rated particularly highly, but no, it's very clear that that team, broadly speaking, is on an upward trajectory. This feels like sort of a, frankly, kind of a just reward for that effort, for that ascension, for want of a better word. Hate to seem dramatic, um, but yeah, I think it's cool. You know, certainly we've talked and talked a lot about the decline of Stuart Haas, just sort of relative to everywhere else. And then the fact the announcements with basically all of Kevin and Eric's sponsors all either leaving entirely or going somewhere else. Um, which never really feels like a particularly good sign. I think it is entirely too early to start ringing death knells, but point is that this feels like a logical next step. It feels like front row is ready to take the step, and I would be shocked, aghast even, if McDowell at least actually didn't make the playoffs this year. I will be interested to see sort of what happens with this team going forward now that they do have the full commitment of Ford.
Uh, you congrats to front row for being tier 114. You can tell throughout this last season and year season before they improvement to be better as a team. Um, SHR them people, so good luck to them. But I could definitely see front row being running in like the top 10 a lot of times this season. So congrats to them.
And if that wasn't good enough, we had some qualifying races on Thursday evening moving forward with the schedule. Um, Toyotas showed up and showed out. I think in the last practice, they were 6 tenths faster than the field in the draft. That's insane. Absolutely insane. Tyler Reddick wins number one. Number two, Christopher Bell and the Forbidden Double Scheme wins the second dual race. And
Hey, it's a solid double scheme.
Hey, hey,
he that's how we lined up for the 500 on Sunday. Um, Interesting races. The duels they didn't really want to play until 3/4 of the way through the race. Um, Ryan Blaney probably regrets uh, being there because he wrecked in every race he was entered in down there in Speed Weeks. It's good to see, I guess, the crumple zones and stuff. He took another lick like he did last year with an almost head-on collision with the wall. So it's good to see that he was able to get out, shake it off, and get back in. But kind of tame, but also kind of crazy at the same time. What y'all think of the other duels? I know you got to go back 5 days, but
Man, yeah, this is like the longest speed weeks in recent history. I what else can you say about the duels that you won't say about just plate racing in the Cup Series in general? I will say that somehow they were tamer through most of the 500 than they were to the duels race. Of course, we found out later that I guess with just the way this car runs it's so much more draggy. The fuel mileage is not there that it used to be. So of course they're running, but I don't know, man. I feel like a lot of the issues that we had during the duels could have been easily rectified if they just gave them, an hour of practice prior to qualifying. I mean, just some drafting practice or something. Because it's like I was thinking today, like the duels, the last couple of years, like the duels have been like Wreckfest, and it used to not be that way. Why did it not used to be that way? Because there is at least like one draft session practice between January 1st and the drop of the green flag on the first duel, whether it was testing or whatever. And it's just like, God, I harp on it all the time. I'm gonna harp on it all the time, but it is so stupid that we go down to the biggest race of the year and you won't let these guys even see what their cars are going to do in the pack until there's points and money and all this other kind of stuff on the line. If I was an owner, if I was in the RTA, I would be furious that I'm tearing up a $300,000 race car because my driver is running around somebody that they are just not compatible with and they got hooked. And they can have found this information out 3 days ago, running with him in a pack and been like, okay, I know I can't push or get pushed by Brad Keselowski or whatever. But instead, we do this. And it's just like, it's, it's getting to the point where I'm almost convinced that NASCAR is leaning on them tearing up stuff and creating manufactured excitement. And it's so frustrating to watch because the dual races shouldn't be wreckfests and whatever the case may be. But Anyway, so far the Toyota gamble has seemed to pay off as far as them trying to rectify their plate track woes. Um, we'll probably know more next week at the baby plate track in Atlanta. I don't know, but I mean that was the biggest highlight of all that deal. The rest of it was just kind of a sour note, honestly. So
Yeah, and I'll just echo what Carl said because this is, Daytona. This is the what top two, top three fastest tracks on the schedule. This is not a Martinsville where you're in a wreck and you can go behind the wall and with a hammer and like beat out the sheet metal. Like if you wreck here, like it's probably ruined. There's no small accidents at Daytona, not anymore. So yeah, the idea, the fact that it's supposed to be the biggest race of the year, uh, and the fact that there's no hour of practice available to these guys doesn't make any sense to me. I enjoyed the duels just to see racing again. Pack racing gets a very hot or cold reputation in terms of the internet, at least, and Twitter and other spaces. I'm a fan of it with certain exceptions. When it does become a wreck fest and when people become idiots, throwing crazy double, triple blocks, like I'm not a fan of it then. But I was excited to see them on the track. I was excited to see the new Toyota, the new Ford, both looked really good. I was excited to see Jimmy come back. Up until I think he got into a bit of an issue in the first race, but all in all, it was exciting to see it back until, yeah, the Blaney accident was just absolutely brutal and had me yelling at my TV. And I think I tweeted that he's probably waiting with a bulldozer to tear this place apart after the last two races at Daytona have had him in some brutal accidents. So thankfully he's okay, but that was pretty scary to see.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, because I think this one was 55G versus 75, which is what it was last time, um, which is absolute insanity, first of all. It's like, and then to do this repeatedly, I really do feel bad for Ryan. The Daytona luck is just not there. And it's not even luck so much as it's just you are probably going to end up head on into the wall at some point at irresponsible speeds. Um, yeah, certainly for the moments that, everybody was behaving themselves in the duels, it was fun. Yeah, particularly I think it was Duel 2, that was the one, that wadded up half the field. Um, certainly the racing was fun. Particularly the scrap with Yaley and Jimmy to make it into the to make it to the 500 was fabulous driving from both. And very well done by Jimmy, who actually had a slightly damaged car to get there. Um, I know his profile took a little bit of a battering after his suboptimal, we'll phrase it politely, IndyCar campaign, but there's a reason why he's certainly so highly rated in NASCAR. Dude can wheel. Um, as if I need to say that about a 7-time champion, um, but yeah, no, fantastic stuff. But yeah, and like I said, just the bad blocks and just dumb incidents. I mean, this is plate racing. We talk about it all the time, and Daytona and Talladega really epitomize that. And I'll try not to beat this dead horse because I mean it's just a skeleton at this point. But it really it is what frustrates me so much about this kind of racing. It feels like pot luck. It feels like you can do everything right and still get screwed, just because one person does something stupid. And I just, we've talked about it before. I don't know what the right answer is, but surely it's not this.
Yeah, I thought it was all
So
right.
if that wasn't enough, oh yes, Michael.
Wow. Jesus. Okay, I'm playing. But I was watching the duels with Jerry and Art on Sort of Spaces. I thought you was there. I thought it was cool, no, but I just don't understand. Like, we in a duel is not the 500. What the bad pushes was literally unnecessary, and then Ryan got hit hard on the wall. That was insane though. But glad he's all right. But it was cool. Good for Tyler to get that W, and my boy Bell get the dub too. Yeah. I know Jared's still hating on him, but anyways though, but really enjoy it. Wish it was like a bit better, but what can you do?
Well, before we get into the meat and potatoes of this conversation, I'm going to take a break and we're going to talk about our new presenting sponsor, Home Field Apparel.
Try this on for size, huh? We've got ourselves a sponsor!
Well, the racing season started once again, and you know that can only mean one thing.
You have something to complain about?
Okay, well, two things, but no, what I'm talking about is it's time for new gear for the 2024 racing season.
You know, Carl, you're right, but honestly, I don't even know if I'm going to get anything. It's kind of all looked the same the last couple of years.
Well, here's the good news. Our friends at Home Field Apparel are getting into the racing apparel business, and I, for one, am excited about it.
What'd you say? Home Field? Getting into racing? When's all this happening?
Well, if you don't know already, Home Field is a storied collegiate apparel company that's been doing this for years, and they're based in Indianapolis, the heart of racing in North America. They know what they're doing, and their first collection is dropping this Friday, February 23rd at 10 a.m., featuring the Hendrick Motorsports Collection. So right out of the box, they're launching with some hard-hitting stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned collegiate sports, and I looked up some of the Ohio State merch that they have, and my goodness, this is fire.
And that's the beauty of what the folks at Home Field do. They offer licensed merchandise for a whopping 180 schools across the country, and these are fantastic vintage designs for some of them and incredibly comfortable as well. It has me really excited about what this racing apparel launch has in store for us.
So this Friday, right?
Correct. This Friday, February 23rd, the Hendrick Motorsport Collection launches featuring multiple homages for the history of one of NASCAR's winningest teams.
Well, at least I know my paycheck's going to something fun this week.
Well, and that's the other thing. Along with offering clothing for all these different collegiate sports teams, these are honestly some of the best vintage designs I've ever seen, and at a great price too.
Yeah, you know, Carl, racing fans are huge on nostalgia the same way college sports fans are, so offering something like this is only the right thing to do. Shout out to Home Field for giving the folks something they've been asking for.
Hey, and it's also worth noting that these images are not something they just grabbed off a search engine and recreated like you see sometimes. These designs are done with meticulous attention to detail and a very close working relationship with the brands they're representing. They've dove deep into the archives of old race footage and photos to accurately recreate everything from the general vibe of the shirt, the logos and the numbers of what we would consider NASCAR's golden era of the late 90s and 2000s, capturing legendary drivers and unforgettable moments. It's going to be a different look when we go to the racetrack this year, but a look that's going to turn heads, and one we're going to be proud of.
You mentioned the late 90s and early 2000s, and I don't think you can even discuss that era without talking about the Hendrick Goats with guys like Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, and even Mr. Days of Thunder himself, Tim Richmond. So honestly, I'm ready to order this stuff right now.
Hey, and not only am I excited about who they're releasing this line with, but just the overall quality of the shirts is something that I can wear more than just a few times, and something that's going to look great every time, and have folks that be asking me, hey, what yard sale did you get that from? Surprise, surprise, these beauties were made in 2024, and let me tell you where you can get a great piece just like this.
All right. So we talked about the who and the what, but can you tell us where? How do I order this stuff? How do our listeners order this stuff?
Jared, it's straightforward and easy. You can pay them a visit over to homefieldapparel.com, whether it's on a computer or a mobile device. Their website is friendly, sleek, easy to use. They even have a mobile app to shop from and look at all their current collections of vintage sports shirts and also the new selection of racing gear that's dropping, just like we've mentioned.
I'm on the website right now, and it's easy to look at. Every category they have, you just add it to your cart, fill out your information, and it's smooth as silk. No ads, no questionnaires, nothing. Just like shopping should be.
Absolutely, Jared. This racing season, whether you're at the track or at the grocery store, Don't let your apparel just say you're a racing fan, let it shout it. And you can use our exclusive code VLV24 for 15% off your first order. Tag us on Twitter at VL Vibes Podcast and let us see what you got. Let's let folks know we're stepping different this year. That's VLV24 at homefieldapparel.com.
All right. If that wasn't enough, trucks. Friday night, under the lights. Raja debuts the HendrickCars.com truck, wrecks all of the other trucks, and who won? I forget.
Nick Sanchez. Dude.
Sanchez
It's
won.
Nick Sanchez. Cut
Yeah.
that. Nick Sanchez wins. It's like Rev racing all over again. The two of them battling out in ARCA. Interesting race. We'll talk about it, but very interesting, very perplexing. Sorry, Tony couldn't finish the show. She had a strong truck, but yeah, it was wow, trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Arthur. No, you got to get it.
Sorry, I was gonna say, yeah. For me, this was probably the most brutal watch of the weekend. With ARCA, I expect nothing, so I cannot be disappointed. And I should have kept those, ground floor level expectations for the truck race as well. And I just kind of hoped that after such a mess that Phoenix was, that you know, in the off season they had a chance to cool off, that maybe before the race somebody from NASCAR HQ came and talked to them, like in the drivers meeting or something. I think I saw a tweet about that or something. But just somebody told them just to cool it just a little bit, like you're on a 10.5 and we just need you at like a 9.7. Like you just gotta dial it back just a little bit. And it was none of that. It was an absolute wreck fest, to the highest order. I feel like 60% of that, I'm making up numbers now, but I feel like 60% of that race was under caution, and it was just wreck after wreck. And I get it's Daytona, and I get that these aren't the most experienced drivers in the field, but it was just brutal, man. It was hard to watch. I was tired of wrecks. Like I'm just waiting for this to be over at a certain point, because I just don't want to keep seeing cars get spun out because of bad blocks and getting turned. And it just didn't stop up until the end. So again, it's my fault probably because I had unrealistic expectations, but it was just brutal to watch. And I really want to love the truck series. Like I really want to wrap my arms around it and like be a fan of it every week. But I can't. Like you keep hurting me, truck series, and I don't know why. You don't want to let me love you. I'm just fed up with it.
I watched the Truck Series. I did not enjoy that race. I'm sorry, but it was just a massively wreck fest and it was just terrible. The racing was all right, but like that was barely racing because there was so many cautions. Like just like Art said, and then yes, I will. Yes, I'm happy about Roger getting second or third, one of those two, but that big one at the end just. Ugh. But Ozzy here learned though, so it is what it is. But outside of that, Ben Rose, I don't know what the hell he was doing, going in the middle, blown tire. Like, come on, dude. It was just an all around mess at the end of the day.
So it's interesting that I think this is one of the slowest races recorded at Daytona, just as far as average speed. I think the average speed of the race was like 93 mile an hour or something because there were so many cautions, which is insanity.
Yeah.
My
Bro,
God.
that is insane.
I can go. I can go
That's a
last on
crazy
that.
stat.
That's insane.
Yeah, I can
Go
go
ahead.
last on this. Yeah.
That was
No, you good.
that was my takeaway. But that this is where, and we talked about it last year when the schedule came out. this is where I'm gonna pull my hair out between these 2 weeks. You go to two super speedways back to back. Most shops need that truck from yesterday or this weekend to run next weekend. Oh boy, I hope they pay really good overtime hours because not everybody has the funding as some of the bigger teams, and to literally just crush and collapse hundreds of thousands of dollars just to turn right around and do the exact same thing all over again. Hopefully they get fussed out in the drivers meeting and they get told to find some chill, because it sucks that all that hard work, those bodies and trucks are a lot more aerosensitive than the Cup and the Xfinity cars are, and just to see all that blown to bits is kind of frustrating as a fan. I'm sure it's frustrating as a team owner. I see again why Kyle said, "Nah, I'm good. I'll just drive," because he was probably tired of paying that bill. But hopefully we learn from our mistakes and it's a cleaner race in Atlanta. Let's hope.
They will absolutely not learn from their
I was
mistakes.
gonna say, do you really
Yeah,
expect
I
that?
don't see that happen, Bucko. That is not gonna happen.
Yeah, but it's funny. Arthur had mentioned it a little bit. Yeah, I do believe it was might have been Auto Week, who's actually moment to moment with motorsports reporting is remarkably good, given that that is not their bread and butter in general mass market automotive media publication rather. But yeah, that apparently the boys, actually truck boys, did get sat down to basically be like, okay, can we not have Phoenix 2 Electric Boogaloo, and then lap 6 it was what, 12 or 13 trucks?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
was
think
early.
so. Yeah,
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I feel like this is just going to be recapping Phoenix all over again, if I'm being perfectly honest. Uh, it's just so dumb. And like I said, we do this. It feels like every plate race. This is what happens. And it was something like 12 cautions, which I do believe is a record. And it would also be why the average speed was so disgustingly low. But I just I don't get it. We've talked about it before. I loved the truck series growing up. It actually was my favorite series growing up was trucks, and I have the few that I love. Certainly, if you hang out in the group chats, I am very much a Tony gal. Um, so mm, we've got those folks, but otherwise, I have a hard time getting to grips with sort of modern truck series and how they race. You know, it feels like short of NASCAR like penalizing people, I'm not quite sure where it's gonna end. Um, but I don't know. Nick Sanchez winning felt good, so I guess I'll take it. Uh, I mean, I don't know what the takeaway is from a race like this.
Yeah, man, the whole thing is just so frustrating, and it's not like this is an isolated incident. This happens literally everywhere, and it's like when you're trying to market like the truck series, like it's this young, energetic series X, Y, and Z, and I don't know, man. I we used to complain. I don't some odd years ago before they put the limit on how many races that Cup guys could run. We used to complain that you know um, Kyle Busch would go down and run too many truck races and win them all the time, X, Y, and Z. And it was like everybody that raced around him at that point in time said, like, well, Kyle makes us better because we have to chase him. And like now that's kind of removed a little bit and they just drive through each other because there's no, in my mind, right? Like if I wreck a Kyle Busch as a truck driver on a Friday night, like I'm not going to live that down. I'm going to learn from that lesson and like apply it. If I run over, like if me and Bonte are in the truck series and I run over Bonte, oh well, not my problem, buddy. Because who are you exactly? You know what I mean?
that's
So
insane.
there's a no. I'm just saying, bro.
No,
It's a
you got a
definite.
point though,
It's a
for real.
definite. It's a definite lack of respect. It's
Yeah,
very
agree.
frustrating to watch. It is really hard to make the argument that this is any kind of relation to like a grassroots racing ladder or pipeline or anything because these kids literally do just act like just spoiled brats at times. And I was thinking today because before we record, I always think about what do I want to say about certain segments. the only way to fix the truck series, man, right now is to go back to its origins when they didn't run big tracks. I mean, I think the biggest track they ran the first, I don't know, 5 or 6 years of their existence was maybe like Texas and Daytona. That was it. You know what I mean? The rest of it was, mile, half mile, 3/4 mile tracks. I mean, and if they want to beat and bang, let them do it somewhere that's relatively inconsequential. Go back. Let's race at IRP. Let's race at Milwaukee. Let's go back and do Sobo and stuff like that. Because and I hate for this to sound like hyperbole, but I am really afraid, just like, the whole clock, 3 minutes to midnight deal. I am very concerned we're getting to a point where somebody is going to get hurt because of a negligent push or shove or hook or whatever the case may be. Phoenix, if Phoenix taught us anything, is that the only thing that they are concerned about is winning. There is no concern about respect or safety or X, Y, and Z. So, or getting even. So that's what to say about that. The other thing that I want to talk about with trucks real quick, hats off to Raj for, admitting like, hey man, it was a bad deal. It wasn't intentional. I wasn't hooking anybody. I was in a rough spot, X, Y, and Z, you know. And I just want to say people act like we haven't seen that same move at Daytona the last decade and the last lap, right? How many times at Daytona have we had a truck upside down in the last lap, right? We had races where Ron Hornaday was still in the truck series where he had truck flipping on the last lap. Like that's how long that's been going on. This is nothing new. I understand there are a minority of people that are detractors against Raj and want to blame him for a certain reason because they feel like he got that seat in an unfair way. But I promise you, if you put one of the Gray Boys, Corey LaJoy, Nick Sanchez, whoever the hell is at Nice, I mean, whoever in that same spot with that same run, the outcome probably would have been the same anyway. But I understand why Bubba talked to him. I understand because it's easy in that situation when people are blaming you to be like, I ain't got to explain nothing, have an attitude. And I think that's what that conversation was. It's like, look, bro, you messed up. Be appropriate with facing these people and just say, hey, it was a bad situation. I learned from him to move on. And that's what he did. And I applaud him so much because he could have really had an attitude about it. You know what I mean? Because it's like they've been wrecking all night. Why are you focusing on just me? But anyway, yeah, Trucks was a disgrace. And I just certainly hope there's not a continuation of this through the year. But I feel like it's inevitable. I hope I don't know, man. I hope Kyle Busch just licks them all. I guess what is it? Friday, Saturday the trucks are running.
It was Friday.
It's Friday the trucks are running this
Yeah.
week, so I hope KB puts a number on them or whatever. So anyway, that's what I guess about trucks. So
Can I speak about something real quick before we move on? I just don't understand how people don't understand what mentorship really means. You got people on the app talking about like, oh, Bubba's idiot for doing this and that. First of all, he's talking to Raj. He's Raj's mentor. Do you not understand that? And it really annoys me how people just jump the gun on certain situations that you don't even know. Like get out that business. He literally told the Raj, say, hey, you messed up, own up to it. It's simple as that. So we don't need to have no whatever. I don't, but anyways.
yeah,
I'd say another thing that was impactful to me. Don't know if y'all caught it, but Bubba, Raj, Tony, Harrison Burton, Tiger Land, a whole bunch of drivers were in a Twitter space for a brief moment on Sunday. They were speaking with Mamba about certain events, and Bubba brought up a good point. One thing that he thinks will help calm down the truck field was if NASCAR lets off the rules a little bit and let the Cup guys run a couple times with them. I mean, Corey LaJoy was in that race, but nobody respects him. But just to have more Cup drivers in the field, so everybody just like slows down and calms down. Like obviously, still race aggressive to put on a good show, but you're not out there living lawless and just smacking people around and trying to see how much the shot bill, how big it can get through over the course of the weekend. So hopefully they take that in consideration as well. Honestly, I had a ball when Kyle Busch ran 13 races in trucks and won 12 of them. That was fantastic
yeah,
for me.
That was
I
good,
loved it.
bro.
absolutely.
said-
And let's just say this for scale, right? Like you talk about Kyle Busch and trucks. Like one of the like most notorious moments is Texas in 2011. Okay, the Truck Series last year makes that look like a scraped knee. Okay, and that was the most egregious thing that had probably happened in like 5 years up to that point. Well, I guess the Brad Keselowski flip at Atlanta the year prior, but still, that was the most egregious thing to happen in the Truck Series in like a while, and like that set the marker for a long period of time. And compared to what they're doing now, man, that's a bump and run. That's nothing. You know what I mean? So yes, absolutely. They need some sort of buffer, someone to teach them a live example. I mean, a rabbit to get out there and chase, I don't know what, but they need something. So yeah, he's 100% right on that point.
So speaking of rabbits and chasing things, Sunday sadly was rained out. Hopefully Florida gets all the moisture they need. There is not a drought in Daytona. Um, rain, go away. Came and went. Another day. Monday, 4 o'clock. People were upset about the start time. They did it for TV, guys. Calm down. The track was dry at 12:30. It's fine. Um, but we had us a cup race. The fuel mileage 4.99. It was a great time. Everybody saving fuel. I've never seen them run the top two lines at Daytona. Like the bottom groove didn't exist for the whole second stage, and I wanted to throw my phone because I was really really aggravated. But they finally decided to race towards the end. We'll get into some of the minute things that happened, but the Hendrick cars caused the big one, and then Willie B allegedly, in quotes, with an asterisk, won the Daytona 500. Because Alex Bowman, if you look at the rule book, he definitely won that race. But we'll talk about that here in a second. What were your thoughts on the 500?
Um, it was it was all right. Just don't lap
Oh, you watched
six.
this race?
Shut up, Jared. Anyways, it was all right. Just don't understand you crashing on lap 6 or what? I don't know, but like unnecessary, Brad, unnecessary. But anyways, though, I thought it was cool. Just too much saving gas, which is really annoying me. Like, really, and another thing too, drivers is not happy about it as well. So I hope they can fix that issue going to Dago or Atlanta. I don't know, but that big one at the end, ugh, was a mess. And Willie B, congratulations by the way. Yeah, should Alex Bowman should have won that for her, but you got people who want to die bomb. You gotta do a chance to win the race. So I really can't blame Ross or get mad at him for that because you got to have a chance to win. But here's what it is. I happy for Willie B. Other than that, the race was all right.
All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna try for this segment just to focus on the race and not the finish. The race itself, despite the fuel mileage game, I still found it pretty entertaining. Um, I was really interested in seeing how aggressive they would or wouldn't be. Um, I was really hoping for a bit more of a competitive package this year. I just felt like the pack racing and the next gen was two freight trains running side by side for the longest time, and like no one could make a move going forward unless they completely dump somebody out of line. But I felt like drivers could make moves. We saw, I think Denny make a run. Maybe would have been the end of stage 2, and he drove up to the field. Kyle Busch drove up through the field a couple times as well. He really, I think, had the car to beat, and it just didn't work out for him. Uh, the other thing I really was interested in was there were a couple random moments it seemed like where there would just be a 5-car breakaway, and they would just suddenly pull ahead by like 6 seconds over the field. And I was getting throwback vibes to that early 2000s plate race Daytona package, where you would have just 4 cars just be out on their own late in the race. So that was kind of interesting to see. I'd be real curious if I had access to the SMT data and all that, just to see what caused that, because it happened, I think, twice. I want to say once in each stage. So I was really fascinated by that. I also really enjoyed. Obviously, I paid a lot of close attention to Bubba in this race, and I mean, I already knew that he was one of the best plate racers coming into this, but I was just really, really impressed with his ability, especially leading a line. There's a good segment in stage two, I want to say it was, where he was leading the bottom slash middle lines, and he just really was a master of side drafting, pushing that upper line close to the wall, and then pulling back down. And there's definitely an art and a science to that. And seeing that versus somebody else like maybe a Truex lead that same line, which happened later on in the run, and he wasn't making those same kind of moves and wasn't nearly as aggressive with the side drafting, just kind of furthers my stance that there is an art and a science to this. And so I get a bit discouraged when people say that, oh, plate racing is just, wreck everybody and be there at the end. There is an art to it, and I was just really impressed with his performance. Very disappointed. I know he got 2311 corner comments, so I'll save for some people are going to be on the naughty list after this race in that segment. But all in all, I think it was a good race. I feel like it was better than maybe the last two Daytona 500s, in my opinion. Ending aside, there were a lot of comers and goers, some good storylines. So, finish aside, I was pretty satisfied with the race overall.
Carl.
Yeah, I mean, I, are we talking about the finish? Or are we talking about like just the what we thought about the racing in general? Because there's
We're
my
going to
thoughts
talk
all over
about
the place. Okay,
just
just the
go. We're
racing.
going to lights too
Yeah,
bright is going
yeah,
to solve a lot of problems.
yeah. I got you. No, man. I mean, look, I don't know. They need to figure out this car and this package because we've had 3 500s now, and we still haven't really found like one way to approach this race or another. And it's relatively frustrating. This shouldn't be a fuel saving situation, because what happens is that I mean you spend the first 3/4 of the race just like I said trying to be in the right line so you can save the right amount of fuel so you can make it to the end to have a shootout at the end. And I guess that's not, I mean, just for the love of the sport, for the soul of the sport, that's not what the 500 should be. And so, I mean, I don't know what the solution to that is. Change the stage links, let them practice. I don't know, but that's frustrating. I will say that they were making a lot of smart decisions yesterday, and I don't know if that's because they were trying, to keep in mind they had to have these pit windows and things like that. I feel like we haven't seen that kind of restraint at plate races the last, I don't know, man, 4 years at least. Well, these guys weren't tearing us over every 10 or 20 laps, only 5 cautions. I mentioned earlier, I don't know if it's going to be the show or not, but I have a coworker that he just got back into watching it. He was like, "Dang, man, they're not wrecking at all tonight," and I was like, "That's a good thing." So that was cool. I mean, what else is there really to talk about? I mean, besides, the big one that I don't know I think Bowman caused that in the end. At the end, in the big one there, and as much as I wanted to blame Brad, um, and that was silly, like I said. And then there was just the end of the race, which look, man, I'll say this. I have no problem with William Byron winning anything or whatever. Like, I don't hate him or anything like that. I think it's cool to see the 24 win anytime as a child of the 90s. I think that number, it's just like seeing like Austin Dillon win. It's like, or Eric Jones. It's like, regardless of how you feel about the driver, like that is a storied franchise, so to speak, in the sport. And so to see that succeed, all these years later is wonderful. I will say that even with Jeff Gordon out of the booth, it really felt like there was a lot of heavy Hendrick bias that we had to hear about all day long, and I wasn't really a fan of that. And then also, it was just like, I I don't know, man. The ending just really kind of soured me on it because there was no real clear explanation. They had to come back after the fact and say, "Well, actually, this is what the rule really is." And I was just like, "It's your biggest race of the year, man." And then also, my only other problem is, and I'll say this: Go talk about the Xfinity race. I was telling my dad this. I was like, they immediately threw the caution, didn't let them try to race it out or whatever the case may be. Ended the race just past start finish line. Compared to the Xfinity race, they tried to let it go for as long as they could past the wreck to see if Sheldon Creed was going to possibly get a hold of Austin Hill. So it's like, again, a continuity error, not even 4 hours after the fact. So anyway, but I mean, all in all, 6 out of 10, 500. It was, to quote Bonte, it was all right, I guess. So,
Bruh.
hey,
Danny, what you got? I mean, you said
Yeah,
it,
I
but
yeah, I mean, yeah, I've certainly I aired quite a few grievances at the top of the show, but yeah, I don't know. It's certainly it's interesting sort of trying to examine this year's 500 in a vacuum. It both flatters it and it doesn't. Certainly if you look at it relative to, in races gone by, this was probably one of the better ones we've had in a little while. And as much and as grumpy as I can get, um, I do genuinely appreciate that. However, also looking at it as such, then it's like it's still not great. It boggled my mind, because granted, we all have, the NASCAR app, and it's worth noting that timing and scoring is not the most reliable thing in the world on that app, needless to say, which that's a diatribe for a different day as somebody that watches 70 car field endurance races. Um, but, when I saw, Dinger had dropped out of the draft, but was running, what, 2 seconds a lap quicker, I'm like, excuse me? I'm like, okay, surely something is broken. And then on the broadcast, they're like, no, they're just saving so much up at the front that Dinger going wide open is quicker than the rest of them. And it's just like, good God, because he was running like a 48.5, and I think the rest of the field was like 51.3 or thereabouts, which is just like, goodness gracious. Now, of course, when the whole pack turns the wick up, then you watch, lap times, much like Art was saying, you watched lap times come down basically another, 3 and a bit seconds. But yeah, that is just the fuel mileage game now is just wild. And yeah, and certainly it's, wild to watch, like the bottom line, basically just not work all day. Again, also to Art's point, you stole a lot of my stuff. Um, is that yeah, certainly watching Bubba lead that line, partway through stage two, that lower line wasn't making any progress. He gets to the front and immediately just pulls it with him. You know, we've talked about it on the show time and time and time again. People certainly, if they, don't have, ridiculous rage boners for Bubba, have noted it time and time and time again. But that man is cracked at super speedway racing. He is a guy that you want either leading a line or ideally you want him pushing you while you're at the front of that line, because he will absolutely make, and even in most cases, a suboptimal line, given the circuit, be competitive. And it is ridiculous to see that in real time, particularly, like I said, given that the lower line hadn't worked all day. He gets up to the front and forward it goes, almost like flicking a light switch. And I think that that is just absolutely incredible. Now, through Lights Too Bright, I'll launch into a diatribe proper about the end of this race. But needless to say that it is the most convoluted, obfuscative officiating that I have seen in a while, and everybody should be ashamed of themselves.
if it's nothing I look forward to most when we record, is the new word that Danny's going to teach me with her superb vocabulary. Goodness
Man,
gracious.
you're gonna be set up nice for that SAT, boy. She got you right.
Boy, I'm telling you, you getting a 2200. But I guess my piece on the race, I don't like the fuel mileage. I don't like the saving. I was really excited because Sunday they showed some pre-race stuff. Fox interviewed Denny live on the race day telecast, and they asked him. Jamie was like, "Well, what's your plan for the 500?" He said, "I'm gonna get mine. I don't care if you get yours." I was like, "Oh, we cooking." Then Clinton asked him, well, "What about 2311? What you gonna tell Bubba? He's an elite speedway racer, super speedway racer. You're gonna tell Bubba, do what you got to do. Break away from Team Motors if it means you can get a win. I don't care. Go for it." I was like, man, the Toyota's fast. Denny don't care about himself or his teammates. We gonna get a good race. It was kind of good. Denny is still Denny. He was able to move from back to front, side to left, left to right to make moves and get where he needed to be. Bubba the same way. I really appreciate everybody, learning and seeing the greatness that we've seen the entire time. He's been a great super speedway racer since he got on to the cup floor back in 2018. Like, he's not new to this, he's true to this. And I appreciate people are starting to realize that when he moves, people follow him. He's not hung out to dry by himself because they know that the 23 is going to be ready for prime time and get to the front. But yeah, it was a good race. I didn't like the fuel saving. Lots of almost and uh-ohs going on the pit road during green flag stops. There's a lot of give. There were a lot of they getting ready to wreck. Everybody got out of it. Everybody hit the brakes. Everybody breathed and kept it together. Part of me thinks they were like, I know the sanctioning body got to get this Xfinity race in. After we can't go having a red flag the last 2 hours, and then they really start the race at midnight. I was wondering if anybody, knowing that there were some drivers in the 500 field, had to do double duty on Monday, but it was a great race. I'm saving my reaction for the end for Lights Too Bright. But I'd give it an 8 out of a 10 for it to be rain delayed, all the adversity that they went through to get this race on. Grandstands still packed. Outside of the Xfinity race, everybody packed it up and went home after the Cup race. But people stayed. It was a great time. I saw a lot of people that I had no idea were into NASCAR on my socials down there at the race. So that was cool to see. So clearly, people are listening to us and saying that they need to go to a race. So I appreciate y'all. But yeah, that's Cup.
I would also argue that Kozlowski driving through somebody on lap 6 probably calmed the field down a little bit too.
Yep.
Brad
Poor
gonna
Jimmy.
Brad. I mean,
Poor Jimmy.
Yeah, man. Races away. That happened.
I really want to interview TJ Majors and just ask him, "Hey, dog, was that you or was that him? Who made that decision? You know the bumpers don't line up. Who did that? Why'd you sign off on that?" Goodness gracious. Moving on. There was an Xfinity race after the Cup race. Natalie Decker led for a long while.
You love
She
to
was
see
up
it.
front for several laps. The first woman to lead an Xfinity race since Danica, I want to say. That's a damn shame. But yeah, she was up front. I thought she was gonna win because I didn't think they were gonna come back to the front of the field because they're in that single file line of 6 cars, and then the rest of the back is 4 wide, just going nowhere. But another snafu by the officiating crew in Austin Hill. Sadly, 3 peats.
Yeah, I want to say real quick. You talked about Natalie Decker, and that was cool to see. There was some commentary this morning about because people are saying like, yeah, she's led the most, or I think near the most of any females in the series. And like the last time that a female's led multiple laps at a plate race at Daytona was Danica Patrick, and I think that was I want to say that was 2013.
Daytona 500.
May have been.
Was it?
No, it wouldn't be the 500 because it was an Xfinity race, right? We're talking about the Xfinity series.
Okay,
so, I want to say she may have ran 1 in 14. Either way, it's been a decade. So what I'm saying is this: in it's Black History Month, when we talk about like these small moments in like the grand scheme of things, it's not because we're celebrating somebody because they're different and like they deserve praise because they're different. It's because like how often does this happen? Not very. It's been 10 years since you've had a woman lead multiple laps at a plate race, and so it's just like that's worth discussing because it's a rarity. The same reason we talk about Raj or Nick Sanchez, Ryan Vargas, Brad Perez, Bubba Wallace. So it's just like give her props because there's not many around like her. So with that being said, man, Xfinity was Xfinity. Riley Herbst is really doing his thing. I think he may be kind of a force this year. I told everybody. I kept saying on Twitter all week, like if Austin Hill is alive at the end, he is like Thanos. He is inevitable, and that is what happened. Yeah, it was frustrating, man, to see that a little bit. I'll say, the other thing, Jeb Burton, sponsored by Golden Corral this weekend. He needs to be wearing that Golden Corral apron and serving folks meatloaf. SVG with the Tokyo Drift save, that was fantastic. But the highlight of it for me was Andy Petrie in the booth.
Man.
I'm telling you, I miss Andy Petrie in the booth so much. As I've said before, I've been on like an old NASCAR kick, watching races from '07, the ESPN races. His his commentary and his analysis is so fantastic. And a moment I pointed out on Twitter was like, um, who was it that was in the booth? Maybe somebody in the booth tried to steer the conversation in like the Austin Hill v. Sheldon Creed moment from Martinsville and tried to like stir up drama. And like Petrie jumped in and was like, well, actually, I mean, yeah, it was disappointing, but it wasn't Sheldon Creed's fault. Like, it just is what happened. And he corrected him. I was like, that is in an era where we've had so many commentators that have a stake in the racing going on and some amount of bias, to hear that is so damn refreshing. Andy Petrie carried that broadcast all night long. So, like I said, I was so happy to hear his voice again. That was cool. But besides that, yeah, man, Xfinity was Xfinity. I mean, that was all to be expected, honestly. It is a late night track. It's late night. These guys are ready to go all day. So yeah, it was what it was, like I said. So it'll be interesting to see if Austin Hill can make it two in a row. It's cool to see Sheldon Creed fire off really good with JGR. And I hope he can, seal the deal this year and get a couple wins. So that's really all I got to say about it.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. Now I know how Danny feels because Carl took all the ones that I wanted to talk about. I was excited for SVG. I think he finished 12th or 13th, somewhere in that range. So a good showing for him at a track that in a style of racing he's never done. And I think I saw some audio somewhere post race where they said, "Oh, you ready to go to Atlanta?" He's like, "Yeah, if I can get some practice in." And I'm like, well, that's just further validating the point that you got to give these folks some time to get on the track and like learn these cars before they go live. Uh, we're the only sport in the world that doesn't have any kind of warm up before you go out live. But yeah,
Practice.
yeah, but ain't no practice. Yeah, seeing Austin Hill was a bit frustrating. Like, I don't really hate on the dude. Like, I don't have much feelings for him. But yeah, to Carl's point, like, it just seemed like every single time he got into just a touch of trouble, and his car was banged up and taped up and everything across the front, and it just drove right back up. And then, of course, because it's a Daytona series in NASCAR, or Daytona race in NASCAR, they wreck on the last lap, and he drives away from it over Sheldon Creed, who just left the team. Like, that's like the bad ending in the video game if you're Sheldon Creed, right? Like, you leave the team and then you finish P2 behind him. Like, that's the game over screen that you get. Like, that's the worst case scenario. Uh, but overall, like, it was an Xfinity race. I wanted to touch on, and I'm doubly mad because I was kind of going to save this for Lights Too Bright and just fuss for a minute. But Carl kind of touched on it. The Natalie Decker discourse that I saw this morning as well. Like we talk about it on here about fans gatekeeping or showing like racism or whatever. And so I just feel like this is a moment where like I got to give some of these folks the spotlight on some of these cockroaches just for a second, just because I just think it's so ridiculous that in the year 2024, you're upset about what's, in the driver's suit, the pantsuit of a driver, the genitals of the race car driver shouldn't matter. And I don't know how to tell some of these folks this, but you don't have to have a pair of balls to be a good driver. Like I have so much respect for these folks to get and go up and strap themselves in a race car. And I just think it's really, really stupid for you to sit there and try to reduce somebody's achievement just because they're not the gender that you want the field to be. I'm just so tired of seeing these kind of arguments. And one gentleman in particular, and I use that term very loosely, talked about, oh, she finished 18th. The only thing I celebrate with my daughters is their 18th birthday. Well, hey, buddy, like your daughters are probably inwardly and outwardly ashamed of you for talking like that about a woman. Like, let's just all grow up a little bit. But I'm sure we'll get a lot of replies and comments and say, "Oh, you're just simping for her," or "Oh, you just want to sleep with her." No, buddy. I just think women are human beings that you should treat them with a little bit of respect. Like, stop acting like a jackass. So I just felt like that needed to get a little bit of shine out there. Like it's just let these people race. Like they are doing this job. Like it's a hard fucking job. Like it's so ridiculous that we're still having these kind of debates about a driver's gender or their race. Like let them go out there and do what they do for a living. So I just wanted to throw that out there for a minute because I was thinking about that earlier today as well. But yeah, Austin Hill, it was cool, man. Good for you. I hope you don't win any more races the rest of this year. I was very tired at the end of this race. I love a double header, but my eyes hurt at the end of that race. I was begging for them to finish. So I'm looking forward, hopefully, to segmented races for the rest of the this weekend coming up, and hopefully Atlanta puts on a good show again.
I am proud of Natalie Decker for like she literally was leading some laps in this whole race, and I'm damn proud of her for that. Like I really am. Like when like women can drive too as well. Like we don't need to shit on them because they're women. You sound like an idiot. But but proud of her. I don't care if she finished 18th. Who cares? I'm happy for her that she led Xfinity race and led some laps. Number two, I can't. My you can tell that Sheldon has slowed down after that wreck that happened. But the caution ain't. But the caution light they come on. But want him to win. But it's all good though. And then but I did want Rodney Hurst to win. But the penalty at the end kind of screwed him out. So it's all good though. Really annoyed that Austin Hill won, but yeah, I guess congratulations. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, how did Austin Hill pass Tech? If he had a messed up nose and tape all over it, bare bond all over it, the whole entire nose, how did that pass Tech? How is his car still that fast after front end damage? He cheated. I blame Andy Petrie. That's why he was in the booth. He ain't earned that. But shout out Sheldon Creed. I really enjoy. I don't know if we can call it a rivalry again just yet, but to see Sheldon and Austin again this year, they're like magnets. They were around each other the entire time. I just knew Sheldon was gonna get his lick back. I was praying on Austin Hill's downfall. It never came. And then to Bonte's point, you look at the way the cup race ends. And they're like, man, we got a shot. Here comes Sheldon. He'll get him green, white checker. We in there. Next guy's like, oh, nah. These people tired. We got to go home. Y'all race back to the flag. Sheldon lets out the gas and Austin Hill just pulls away from him. I've never felt so bad for him in my life. If you're
Man.
going to do dumb stuff, be consistent. Please be consistent. Um,
I just want to say this: as far as Austin Hill winning like all these play races, that I will say there is a little bit of warm, fuzzy nostalgia feeling with it because like Jared, Art, and myself come from an era where like teams used to have like dedicated like plate programs and they used to show up with pieces that you knew were going to win. And so this is very vaguely familiar with it. Also, we have to let Danny go. I know we're trying to get the lights too bright because I know everybody's got a whole bunch of things to say. So far, I've got like 4 sentences written down. It's going to be 16, but I will say though that like I don't care for Austin Hill as a person, as a driver. I don't know. He's just kind of obtuse to me. But it is cool that team's been able to put themselves in a position to win all these plate races and you don't see that much anymore, especially in Xfinity where you have like, these sort of spec body deals and all that kind of stuff. So that is cool. Um, but the rest of it I could care less about. But I mean, it's like you got to give props where props are due, right? So, I wish Bubba Wallace could have an ounce of the Austin Hill plate track luck. We'd be holding 2 Harley Daryl trophies by now, buddy. If we could just get half of that. But so I did want to say that it is reminiscent of like back when they had the whatever the DEI plate program was called back in the day, NORAD or whatever it was. So anyway, that was just an observation I had. But let's hear what Danny has to say about it.
Well, first of all, the fact that Xfinity was yet another mess was absolutely brilliant. Felt like just a wonderful way to cap off this year's Daytona festivities. Um, but yeah, the one critical thing that I think a lot of people missed, particularly with the Decker discourse, wonderful bit of alliteration, is that she was just fast all night. Um, She, yes, cause got absolutely shafted, when that, set of cautions came out shortly thereafter, but, just through the way, I mean, she was as far back after that as, like, 30 something and drove her way back up to 18. I mean, you talk about some other series, watching, Kyle Busch basically do the same thing throughout the whole 500. Would be running up the front, would have something go wrong, was at the tail end of the field, would drive back up to the front, rinse and repeat. It is the Kyle Busch saga eternal. And that was basically what Natalie did. Um, so, and it's like, I don't know, and I understand that the DARF term it kind of exists for a reason, but just the lack of ability to be able to separate in instances where it's required the finishing position from the actual content of the race is something that never ceases to frustrate and amaze, sort of in equal measure. And it's like, yeah, okay, fine. No is, 18th, like, stunning result. No, of course not. But when you look at sort of what she did to get there, it's like, well, holy smokes. I guess, to make a cute chicanery reference, it's like, some of, if you go back and you can find footage of Doreen Pin in karting. Occasionally she wouldn't qualify super well, but that same thing, Doreen is bad fast and just working her way up through the field. Okay, fine. She, might finish 10th, but okay, well, for some reason or another, she was starting at the back of the field. So, like, 10th is pretty good, all things considered. Yeah, it was fun to watch SVG do his thing and to watch him be both amazing and kind of goofy in equal measure because he set off a caution. I think was it Jeb Burton that he killed when he tried to slide up into line and he was so not
Yes.
clear.
Yeah. Nothing of value was lost.
I mean, to be fair, you are absolutely right. But I am like, Shane, you couldn't have been any less clear if you tried. And nope, he's gonna slot in the line. I mean, and yeah, Jeb had like 3 incidents completely on his own after that, so clearly it was no great loss that Shane killed him. But to do that, but then in that same incident, watch him gather it up again and keep going is just fantastic. It was definitely late and much like I was having a hard time keeping my eyes open. Honestly, if it weren't for Petrie, I probably would have fallen asleep, if I'm being perfectly honest. Because I was just so cooked by the end of the day. It's like
I was too.
it's like, let's finish this up so
Yeah.
I can go to bed.
I was like
But
laying. I'm sorry.
no, it's the same thing. I had my laptop in bed and I'm just listening at that point and texting my friend as they're watching the race too. It's like, oh my god, can we please get finished?
I
And actually, they ended up checking out on me too.
I have you guys ever seen that meme where it's like Stewie Griffin going to bed and then crying?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was me last night, man. Because like, especially because of the fact that like everything wrapped up at like 11:30 Central, and like my alarm was set for like 3:45 this morning. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I go home day, man. I got to get up early and get to rocking. But no, I before we do Lights Too Bright, I just want to say to piggyback exactly what Danny says. It's like I say all the time. As far as we talk about guys like we talk about like not guys, people like Natalie Decker, Ross Caruth, Sanchez, Suarez, Bubba. Right? We talk about these guys, and I say all the time, like the stats don't tell the entire story, right? Like these guys have had fantastic drives in some situations they've had to overcome, and if it was anybody else, it would have been like a highlight. It would have been a conversation. Would have been a story. But sometimes it gets lost in the mix because their final finishing position isn't what these people, these cockroaches, so to speak, think that it should be, and it's like I so yeah, I mean, it's just something to keep in mind. Like I said, that's why I tell Tom, like, you have to look at like the whole thing. You can't just look at like oh, she finished 18th. Oh, he finished 12th or whatever at a Watkins Glen or whatever the case may be. I mean, like it's just like whatever. But anyway, I just wanted to add that little bit in there, and yeah. So I guess it's time for L2B baby.
All right,
Hey, boo boo.
What?
my Lights Too Bright winner
We're getting silly.
gotta be race control, bruh. Like, what do you mean? It's two cars. They flew off into the infield. They didn't hit anything. Very drivable. Ruined Bubba's chance at capturing that big old trophy and winning his first 500. Did you see
He
the run the
was
Toyotas had?
Yeah, made third in the top line. Like I went back and I looked.
Dog,
Oh my god!
dog.
We had just 3/4
They
more
were
of a lap
set
before they
up for
ran.
greatness.
Uh,
I saw it come to life.
it
Bubba's
was
going to
last.
ditch Christopher Bell, which he rightfully should, and drive away into the sunset and win his 500.
It
But
was
no, we
last
got robbed of
last
two
year
and a
all
half
over
miles.
again. Yeah, last year all over again. 22 all over
Mm,
again.
don't remind
2021
me
where
of
he was
22.
right
Oh
where he
my
was
god.
right there at the end, and then like they had the penalty, and he was still like he was in the lead pack, whatever. It's like, come on, man. And again, that's why I say the stats don't tell the whole story, because it's like
Come on,
since
bro.
he's been at 2311, we've had 4 Daytona 500s, and each one he's been in the conversation during the
Right
race
there.
and at the
Right
finish.
there.
And what has happened? You know what I
Right there.
mean? Like like if somebody like kissed a Campbell in Bangladesh, and like our luck was a little bit different, he would have 4 Harley-Davidson trophies, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Like
You aren't wrong.
yeah,
Facts,
man.
man.
Yeah, I was so because like I didn't realize how close he was until I saw the
Dog.
aerial, and I was like, "Bro, you got to be kidding me, man!" Because at first I was like, "Yeah, bro, we got sixth, fifth, fantastic," and then I saw like where they were like in relation to like Byron's line. I was like, "Oh, they would have went to 3. They'd have went up high. They'd have
Dog.
hung the 24 in the middle."
Mm,
And yeah.
mm.
Anyway, I'll let y'all go with Lights Too Bright.
So
So.
in addition to race control butchering the cup finish, just letting the Xfinity cars just go like it's 1996 again when the field is dead. Like can I get some consistency? NASCAR coming into another super speed race this weekend. Do unto others if you would have others do unto you. That is twice now. You've shortened the Rolex 24 for the prototypes, and you've shortened the race for the Cup cars. Your two premier series and the premier vehicles got shafted. Fix it for this weekend. That's my Lights Too Bright.
Man, okay. So my Lights Too Bright is also NASCAR race control. I'm gonna take it in a slightly different direction. And my Lights Too Bright is for the end of the race caution, time of caution rule as a whole. Because I understand the logic of we gave you green white checkers, we'll give you unlimited green white checkers, but at a certain point you keep wrecking, we gotta call it. I'm totally fine with the idea that like once you take the white flag, next flag ends it. Totally fine with that. I think they need to put a cap on green white checkers. Personally, I'm fine with just it being 3 or less attempts. But if I watch this race, I can count in my head. I see the car spinning and count 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and they cross the line. Now, and I tweeted this, but I'll repeat it here. If you're in a sport where the difference between winning and losing is half a tenth of a second, it's unacceptable that it takes you 2 seconds to get that call in and relay it in. And I don't know what the process is. I don't know if it's a button. I don't know if it's an old school Acme Dynamite plunger that they have to push to turn on the lights. Like, I don't know what the setup is, but the whatever it is, it's too damn slow. And I hate it because yes, I would have loved to have seen a green white checker. Maybe Byron wins, whatever. It's the same finish, fine. But
Boo.
by
Yeah.
the letter of the rule, it
Mhm.
should not take that long. It should not be the time of caution
Read the
should be
rule.
when the wreck starts. It should
Right.
not be when we turn the lights on. Because if that's the case, and the
Preach.
time of caution isn't when the incident occurs, it's 3 seconds later. And this sport can't go off of 3 seconds in a delay for the biggest race of the season. You got the most eyeballs on it. Like that to me was the biggest load of garbage. I'm trying to save on the censor beeps. But that was the worst part of the weekend for me because I'm sitting there watching it and I'm counting, on the replay, and I can visually count the time. So if it takes you 3 seconds, then you need to change the rule to be we're going to freeze the field at the moment of the incident that we called the caution at. And in this instance, it would have been prior to the start finish line. Now, if they go off into turn one of their wreck, of course, whatever, it's fine. But I just hate the idea that we've got all this money. I saw the tweet from NASCAR Twitter. This was the biggest purse ever. Like we got
Biggest purse ever.
all this
28 million.
prestige. Careers are changed and defined by this race. Every year I see the clips from the past winners, and the fact that it takes some guy 3.5 seconds to hit the button for the signal to send and then relay down to the lights on track, that's not good enough. I'm sorry, like that's just not good enough. If you've got all this technology to measure, within 0.0001 seconds of a tenth of a second to determine a finish, then the fact that we're relying on this old method just is not good enough to me. And like I said, I'm willing to accept any result, but by the rules that you've laid out, you didn't follow them. And I've watched plenty of races where the moment somebody spins, oh, caution's out immediately. Like the car hasn't even, the driver has barely started correcting. So maybe it was, late on a Monday night and they were nodding at the wheel. I don't know what the issue was, but like that to me is just so unacceptable. And like I always say, like we praise NASCAR when they deserve it. We got to give them flack when they deserve it. But this was just absolutely god awful to me. Like that's what soured me most on this race more than anything. And
Yeah.
it's hard for me to take the finish aside because that's what everyone remembers, right? Nobody's going to
Yeah.
remember the 198 laps that were great. They remember how at 199 you fucked up the call. So I really, really hate it because I wanted this race to be so great. Like every year, I love the Daytona 500 so much. Like I love this race and I want it to be good. And I just want a proper fucking finish. Like I'm just so tired of seeing this race end under caution. And I know most of that's the driver's fault, and I'm not saying, like they're absolved of any blame, but I'm just so tired of it. Like we were eating so good, Harvick and Mark Martin, Denny and Truex, like we ate so good and we don't have any of that anymore. Like we used to be a proper country.
Oh,
I
Lord.
just, and I'm gonna end it here, but I'm just so turned off by this. And like, if I was a new fan, like, if it takes you 5 minutes to explain to me how the event ends, then it's way too complicated.
100%.
The Super Bowl was, hey, look, if the Chiefs score a touchdown, it's over. All right, they scored a touchdown, it's over. Like it's so easy. So I wish they just would change the rule, like change it tomorrow. Like I'm fine with that at this point. But like just change it to be the moment of incident is the caution. And then just take out this whole thing. Cause like I'm looking at a fucking satellite picture of them going off into turn one. And it's like, oh well, you see, if we slide it one frame over, the light turns on. Like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing here? Like, we look like amateurs with our blank in our hand right now. Like, what are we doing? I just I hate it so much, man, because this race was so good for me up until that point. And I'm sitting there like, oh well, now I gotta wait for fucking Xfinity now, and like I'm just ticked off because of this. I'm just ugh. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And I'm gonna shut up now and let everybody else go. But fuck me, man. Like that was so aggravating.
It's a lot
I
of F
just wanted
bombs.
before I let Bonte go, during the recording of this show, we put out an over under bet line on the sensor beeps, and the line was 5.5. Hope you placed your bet.
That
Hope
was
you placed your
6.
bets with Bonte.
What
The
That
bet?
bank
was
is
I.
open.
We
Bonte
did
owes you
6
money.
and we did
I
6
don't
and
owe
we
nobody
did
no money.
6 in
That's
2 minutes. I I first I first noted it at an hour and a half at 1:32. We racked up 6 for Art. So we beat the over.
Hey,
Let's try to
hey, you know what
not beat it any
that's called
further.
juking the stats for anyone that is a fan of The Wire because yours truly wrote that tweet. So
that's more F bombs on this show than I said out the whole
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
Lie again, Bonte. Give
How
us
am
your
I
latest two
lying?
ducks.
Hey, anyway, bro. No, we're not getting. We're already 90 into it, bro. Like I said, let's
All
let's
right.
let's get the let's get yeah.
Likes to Bright Award goes to the officials. Because what the hell was that? That's all I got to
Yeah,
say. Y'all need to
straight
do
up.
better because that, oh Lord, that was god awful. If, I don't know what's going on with official lady win sports, but y'all need to get y'all shit together. Y'all are terrible. That's all I got to say. Y'all are terrible.
So it'll be a sort of a similar but different, and it's kind of it's actually in this instance it's for NASCAR, just broadly speaking as a whole. So we had this epic multi-part series about on Netflix about NASCAR, and I mean it is very clear. We talked about it during the Clash episode to leverage kind of we call it the Drive to Survive effect, of course, and all of this to bring in new fans. And what do we get on the week of the 500? You get again, and I said it before. It's at best the current rule set is hopelessly convoluted. At worst, it is horrendously obfuscative and designed to cover NASCAR and frankly in their own deficiencies in officiating. And I alluded to this during my piece about the 500, but I mean, you all recognize this voice as, one of the two voices of a podcast that mainly focuses on endurance racing. You are talking about minimum 6-hour events with 40, 50, 60. And if you're talking about like the 24 hours of Nürburgring, you're talking about 24 hours of 80 cars on track. And yet, officiating race control is always on it. Please tell me why 40 of these goofballs running around a 2.5 mile oval for, 3 hours, give or take, is apparently so difficult. It honestly beggars belief that in 2024, NASCAR still has such a horrendous time with what amount to scoring errors. I genuinely, even just saying it, I almost cannot believe it when you think about that for 2 seconds. And, and the same thing, it's like, and then, they want to throw the caution for that. But then in Xfinity, 4 hours later, I mean, folks are just dead. I mean, you're just wiping out the field. And no caution. I get it. It's late on a Monday night. Everybody's ready to get the hell out and head up to Atlanta. But I, the lack of consistency, the lack of clarity is staggering to me. And, I'm broadly speaking not really the conspiratorial type. If anything, if you have watched me on Twitter, I usually come down with a pretty firm hand on those who are. But given all of the nonsense with, the 40 years of, Hendrick Daytona victories and Jeff Gordon in the 24, this felt like a big dog and pony show, frankly, just to make Jeff Gordon and Mr. H happy. And so everybody is willing to kind of, broom it off to the side and hope that we forget about the absolute farce, frankly, that was the finish, at least, of the 2024 Daytona 500. I saw some people calling this analogous to Abu Dhabi 21, and while I don't know, I'm not quite sure that's fair. Um, there's a broadly different set of circumstances, arguably just as egregious, if not more so. But I wouldn't go that far. But I understand what folks are saying, and much to Art's point, this would be the finish of this would be a huge turnoff if I had to come from the Netflix miniseries. It's like, okay, so this is the house that y'all run. It's like, I'm out of here. Honestly, go watch something else. But yeah, lights too bright. It's just, I think, for the entire sport this week.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I don't want to give it to the entire sport. They did a really good job of trying to wrap everything up, of trying to pack all the racing together pretty tightly. I mean, like I said, whatever negotiations or moves they made so that ARCA would go ahead and run post truck race was cool. I mean, like I said, not making Xfinity wait another day, all that kind of stuff. Like they really did work very hard. Um, to really pull this weekend off. So that was cool. I like Super Bright to split 50-50. We've already harbored on the finish a lot. But I will say, just to piggyback on what Art said, if I've got to explain the finish to somebody, then it's too convoluted, man. Like my dad watches, and he was trying to understand like how it was, controversial and I was just like, if I have to go through and explain it, then the rule is too convoluted to begin with. And like I said, the frustrating part is, again, I hate to talk about like there being bias in the sport or a conspiracy or X, Y, and Z, but it is very frustrating to see like you guys immediately threw it. There was no looking back. There was no like let's try to give the fans a green, finish at the green or whatever the case may be. A popular team. I mean, it just looks that way, whether that was a decision or not. And I'm sure they're also thinking about the Xfinity start time and stuff like that. But then, like I said, again, 3 hours later, same situation, and you guys just let it run out until like you just couldn't do it anymore. So it's just like man, come on, bro. Like it's just very frustrating, and it's just every year I'm just so sick and tired of like us having to have this conversation. And it's like you guys need to figure out what you really want. I mean, it's just like if you if you guys want like a fantastic finish every year, then let's go to the unlimited OTs like the Clash and just balls to the wallet. If you guys want to stick to the sanctity of it, I don't know, but yeah, it's a black eye honestly on the sport's biggest race, a race that I love so much. Every year before we go green, I get nervous about it as if I'm in it because I love this race that much because it is a monumental race. People will not talk about who won Kansas or who won Sonoma or whatever years from now this year, right? We're not going to. We'll talk about this 500 win forever. You know what I mean? We talk about Trevor Bayne's 500 win to this day. I mean, like I said, so even the rained out 500 wins we still talk about. So it's just like it's a big thing. So to let it go down like that, and you've had to elaborate multiple times because you got the call wrong, it's just such a slap in the face of the fans. It's so frustrating. Anyway, I will say the other half of my lights too bright is Fox. I'm over it, man. It is one race into whatever 13 races they're doing. I'm over it. From the graphics for the drivers, these pre-race bits that they're doing, whatever the hell animal control is. Nobody cares. We're not watching that dumb shit. And then on top of that, and here's my real problem with it. You want to promote your show so damn bad, and it's like all you're doing is you're having the lead character of the show nobody is watching give off bad jokes, and he can't even get his dates right. And this is a pre-recorded segment. So somebody had to look at that, and I know it's minuscule. I understand that. But somebody had to look at that and they okayed it. And you are a multi-billion-dollar broadcasting company, bro. If you don't want to do this anymore, just let somebody else have it. Phone it in, man. Just the booth was irritating at times. The production call, just the whole thing. I'm just like friend of the show, Dylan Good and D Good 24 on YouTube. Check him out. Like tweeted yesterday, like how are they so good at this when they first started versus here we are 23 years later, and it's just it's ass. There are iRacing broadcasts do a better job than this. Come on, man. I'm so glad, I'm sure this is a bad thing to say. I actually am very glad I gave no network or no subscription service my money to watch that race because I would have felt ripped off. The only way that was worth my time is watching it for free. Sorry, NASCAR. Sorry, Fox. But that's the way a lot of people feel these days. Anyway, that's my Life's Too Bright.
Well, damn. All right. Well, let's do it like this. I'll do 2311 corner.
Wow.
And then I want y'all to give me your picks for Atlanta. So, 2311 corner. Shout out Bubba, another top 5 in the Daytona 500. You really can't mess with greatness. Slid to the back to the front, ran out of gas. They wrecked it. He got gas, was able to drive up to P5, got robbed of the win. Tyler got in the big one, sustained some damage, finished 29th. But Tyler won the duel, so I guess he still had you would call it a successful weekend because he got points. Very briefly, what are we looking at or looking for out of 2311 going to Atlanta this weekend?
Same way how they did at Daytona. Consistency. Like Bubba has been like, I watched the race and dude was phenomenal that whole race. The side draft, just like Art said, him holding the line, getting the lead as usual. Had a fast car too. So yeah, him, and then also him getting stage points too for both stages as well. Just fantastic, and also a top 5 finish. Let us see it, but to that doggone caution, at the end puts up. Want that went so bad, but anyways, I think it'll be the same way for Atlanta for him because he said it himself. He want to bring that confidence back. So and then the way how he was driving at Daytona, I could definitely see that, and I could definitely see that in Atlanta. So props to him.
Yeah, I would. I'll piggyback off of that. Yeah, lost in kind of the heartache at the end was actually a really solid day for Bubba. I'm sure a lot of folks know if you watch the broadcast, but they had a huge mistake in terms of getting enough fuel in the car, and they were about to be sunk. And they were actually drifting back trying to save fuel, and they avoided the big one. I think it was at lap 192 and 193, somewhere in that range. So they kind of failed upwardly by making that mistake, keeping them out of the pack for the big one, and then finishing fifth in the stand and getting a fifth place in the standings coming out of the race. So if you're not going to win, if you can survive and get those stage points, I think that's huge. I think we talked about it offline, but I feel like it was about 20 weeks into the season last year, but it felt like before they finally got some stage points. So off to a hot start there. And then like Tyler, I mean, he just was in wrong place, wrong time, right? And just got caught up in the chaos. But looking at next week, I really am curious to see because there were some parts in the race where they were drafting together, but they really didn't spend a ton of time lined up. There's a few segments I want to say in stage 2 where Tyler was behind Bubba. So I'm just curious to see how those guys work together. Obviously with JGR, like there's going to be a lot more of the manufacturer games at Atlanta, I'm sure, like there were at Daytona, but I want them to get a good finish. My heart wants Bubba to win, but because the racing gods suck, it'll be you know who am I looking at? It'll be Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher will win Atlanta because life is unfair, and that I'm gonna stop there
Oh
before I get in
man,
trouble.
yeah, yeah, um, yeah. As far as the 2311 corner goes, man, look, um, Bubba, said it in the pre-race segment with Joel McMurray, like, look, I've been trying to prove that I belong here. I know that I belong here. Like, he definitely seemed like he has taken the time and done the work to try to find ways to channel what he feels into a more confident stance. I love to hear that from him. Like I said, he's been as big as his own worst enemy. He has given his detractors a lot of fodder the last 4 years or so, saying things at times that they shouldn't have said, and like I said, we know the broadcasts have fed into that. They've kept the camera on him longer to try to get reactions out of him. One such instance that I will always refer to is Coda last year. He had that deal, and like I say, any other time they would have cut the cameras away, but they left it on him for an additional 10 seconds so they could see him slamming his helmet down. You know what I mean? So I love the confidence. I love the outlook. I know that he was a little let down by their misstep on that. I just hope that is a learning moment from them, and it just isn't replicated. They just make sure that they don't replicate it. They were good on stops all night, for the most part. I know Bubba had an issue; he stalled once, slid through once, but they definitely be performing better as a whole. Bubba seemed to have a lot of confidence. I think if we would have had this, if I think a year or two ago, if Bubba would have showed up and qualified where he did, it would have probably been, oh, woe is us, we're slow, I don't know what to do, kind of situation. So I definitely think there is a switch that's been flipped. As far as predictions, man, I don't know, dude. I hate that we're having to go plate racing 2 weeks in a row. It's so stupid at the dumbest track ever conceived. Uh,
Who would have thought?
nothing good ever happens. So I'll say William Byron goes 2 for 2 because he won the first. Actually, yeah, he won the first race there
Yeah.
at the new layout, right? And then he won
Yeah.
the last race we had there. And Chase Elliott is the one in between. So it's been nope. Logano's won one too. Okay.
Yeah. Logano
Anyway,
won and Kelly won one.
yeah. Logano won the first one last year. Anyway, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Yeah, nothing good ever happens. So it'll be Willie B going back to back, or something like that. I just hope that Bubba that the 23 can have another good points day, come out of there with the top 10 and stage points, and then on our way to a 1.5 mile track. I'll be happy with that. I'll be over the moon with that. So.
Danny,
Oh,
did you
we're
go?
gonna remember me this time, huh? But no, all joking aside, certainly for 2311, this was, yeah, the fact that we, bagged, Bubba's got good stage points, to start off the season is huge. It felt until basically, 3 weeks before the playoffs, it felt like it was like, oh, now you guys care about stage points. It's like, well, it's about time. Well, clearly they've figured that out, and that was potentially one of their undoings last year. Because I mean, they basically each round they were entering below the cut line because, well, no stage points. So if that's good, yeah, certainly all things considered, certainly Daytona could have gone much work. I mean, it was a that Bubba being underfueled and inadvertently missing the big one feels like some weird motorsports divine intervention. I like because I mean that was colossally stupid and it should never have happened in the first place, let's be clear. But in doing so, that kept him from suffering the same fate that well half the field did. So I'll take it. Although it concerns me that we might have burned up all of our luck in one go. So there's that. But but yeah, and certainly, Tyler winning his dual race was great. But yeah, but then I guess what motorsports gods giveth, they taketh away, because then he finishes P29 because he had nowhere to go. Um, now as for Atlanta, we'll have to see. I mean, certainly to Carl's point, while I don't have quite as strong feelings, it's a very, very weird little track. And I'm never quite sure what to make of it. So, as long as, the boys aren't being released from the infield care center, I'll consider that a decent day, all things considered. Also, I like Busher, thank you very much. But yeah, just I don't know, just don't junk it, and then we can move on to the intermediates. Because I'll be very interested to see actually how the new Camry behaves there, to see if they're still as OP as they have been historically.
Can I say one thing about Atlanta real quick?
Sure.
You know that Alanis Morissette song, "Ironic"?
Mm-hmm.
Then she needs to add a line in that song about the fact that they did away with one of the best mile and a half tracks as we added a really good mile and a half race car. Because isn't that ironic? Anyway, I'm never gonna get over that. I'm never gonna get over that. And then the fact that like they'll never back down from being wrong, despite like the visceral disgust amongst everybody about it. But it is what it is. Anyway, this has been a great episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Me, I guess I'll get my censor for the week. I just want to thank everybody for listening. We appreciate y'all rocking with us. Season 2, Victory Lane Vibes is live. We got 37 more weeks of this, so I hope y'all as prepared as we aren't, because it's going to be a fun ride. Shout out once again to Home Field Apparel.
Wow.
We'll see y'all in Atlanta, twin.
Peace.
Who's twin?
No, because they're going to Atlanta and they say twin instead of bro down there.
Huh?
Wait,
I'm trying to
what?
be hip. I'm not from. Yeah, in Atlanta, like they like instead of being like, "What's up, bro?" They'd be like, "What's up, twin?"
That wasn't on any episode of Atlanta that I watched.